Cannabis Common Sense, the show that tells the truth about marijuana and the politics behind its prohibition.
Hello and welcome to another exciting edition of Cannabis Common Sense. We have a great show for you tonight. We have three people from a local event that happens next week, the Cannabis Collaborative Conference. It's Mary Lou Burton, Miranda, and Ted. We'll be talking to them a little bit more. I want to thank you guys for coming on.
Thank you.
Over in the wings, John Cornett is ready to play another song.
Hey, what up?
Hey, we have our hemp news segment and some interesting video roll-ins. So stay tuned as we bring on our infamous dancing cannabis leaves. Here they come.
I feel the force.
First story tonight is from Washington, D.C. The Trump administration's nominee for U.S. Attorney General William Barr, during Senate testimony on Tuesday, affirmed that he would not use the power of the Justice Department to target marijuana-related activity in jurisdictions where the plant is legally regulated. In response to a question posed by Democratic Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey, Barr said, quote, "My approach would not be to upset the settled expectations and the reliant interests that have arisen as a result of the Cole Memorandum," end quote. The 2013 Cole Memo was rescinded by former U.S. Attorney General Jeff Sessions, and it directed prosecutors not to interfere with state legalization efforts and those licensed to engage in the plant's production and sale, provided that such persons do not engage in marijuana sales to minors or divert the product to states that have not legalized its use, among other guidelines. Although Barr said that he personally opposed the increasing divide between state and federal laws for marijuana, he acknowledged that he will not go after companies that have relied on the Cole Memorandum. It's encouraging that William Barr pledged not to enforce federal marijuana prohibition against the majority of U.S. states that have reformed their marijuana laws. With this commitment, Congress has a mandate to take action and end the underlying policy of federal criminalization. William Barr is awaiting confirmation by the Senate Judiciary Committee. Police in Oklahoma jailed 4 men and seized $500,000 worth of industrial hemp this week because they believe the hemp to be marijuana and the men to be drug traffickers. According to a report out of Denver, that the men, a driver, and several security escorts remain in custody, and that the Oklahoma police have contacted the Drug Enforcement Administration for assistance in testing the hemp. Thanks to the 2018 Farm Bill, hemp is no longer a controlled substance. These 4 men will likely be freed, and the hemp will hopefully be returned, but the fact that they were arrested at all speaks to the increasingly patchwork nature of cannabis laws across the United States and the confusion and damage that the system visits on market participants. Jamie Baumgartner of Colorado, whose Panacea Life Sciences company was the intended recipient of the hemp, says that his company ordered the plant from Kentucky, that a manifest of the truck identified the cargo as hemp, and that Panacea Life Sciences contractors received pre-clearance from the state of Oklahoma to transport hemp through the state on its way from Kentucky to Colorado. This should have been enough to ward off police harassment. But hemp and marijuana are both forms of cannabis, so they look and smell alike. In the months and years ahead, we can expect law enforcement in prohibition states to hassle hemp companies, sometimes out of an abundance of caution, sometimes out of stupidity. Unfortunately, this problem will likely get worse before it gets better. Aside from the obvious confusion, we may soon see local and state hemp seizures cases involving products that sit just above the THC threshold that federal law now says separates hemp and marijuana. Any product that is 0.3% or less THC is classified legally as hemp, and any product that contains more than 0.3% is marijuana. A plant product that contains 0.4% THC is not going to get you high. The average THC content of marijuana plants in recreational dispensaries was 19.6% in 2017, but a plant with 0.4% THC would possibly be illegal under federal law and allow for asset forfeiture and drug trafficking charges. We might also see malicious or incompetent batch testing by local cops or the intentional contamination of evidence. In light of the drug lab scandals in Massachusetts and routine reports of police officers misidentifying legal substances during traffic stops, these are not baseless fears. I mean, if cops in Florida can mistake donut frosting for methamphetamine, cops anywhere can and almost certainly will mistake a plant that looks and smells a lot like marijuana for marijuana. Our next story is out of Denver, Colorado. The daily administration of CBD is associated with sustained symptomatic relief in patients diagnosed with anxiety disorders, according to the results of a case series published in the Permanente Journal. Investigators at the Kaiser Permanente and the University of Colorado at Denver and Colorado State University assessed the adjunctive use of low daily doses of CBD, typically 25 milligram capsules, over a 3-month period in a cohort of patients diagnosed with either sleep or anxiety disorders. The researchers reported that patients experienced a mild improvement in sleep scores and a larger, more sustained response to anxiety. They also said that CBD appears to be better tolerated than routine psychiatric medications. The authors acknowledged that the therapeutic doses used in the study were far lower than those typically associated with anxiolytic action in prior clinical trials. They concluded, quote, anxiety scores decreased fairly rapidly, and this decrease was sustained during the study period. Randomized and controlled trials are needed to provide definitive clinical guidance, end quote. The study, Cannabidiol in Anxiety and Sleep, a large case series, appears in the Permanente Journal. Next story is from Columbus, Ohio. Limited sales of medical cannabis products began this week in Ohio, some 2.5 years after the program was initially signed into law. Under the law, cannabis-specific products may be dispensed as oils, tinctures, and edible patches, or an herbal material. Smoking herbal cannabis is not permitted under the Ohio measure. However, the measure does not clarify how this prohibition would be enforced. Registered patients may vaporize herbal plant material. Initial prices at dispensaries in Ohio averaged approximately $25 per gram, according to news reports. These prices are markedly higher than those typically found in other regulated states. Out of Santa Fe, New Mexico, newly elected Democratic Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham announced this week that she will direct health officials in her administration to make those with opioid dependence eligible for cannabis access. The directive represents a departure from the position of former Republican Governor Susana Martinez, who vetoed legislation to expand medical marijuana access to those with opioid-related dependency. Several other states, including Illinois, New Jersey, New York, and Pennsylvania, now permit physicians to recommend cannabis therapy to patients who would otherwise be prescribed opioids or who are struggling with opioid dependence. Studies have shown that cannabis use is associated with greater retention rates in patients seeking opioid dependence, and that in some cases it reduces opioid-related cravings. From Milan, Italy, the daily administration of proprietary cannabis extract nabizimals, a spray containing nearly equal ratios of plant-derived THC and CBD, reduces spasticity in patients with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, or ALS, also known as Lou Gehrig's disease, according to clinical data published in the journal Lancet Neurology. Italian researchers compared the administration of nabizimals versus placebo in a cohort of ALS patients over a period of 6 weeks. The researchers reported an improvement in spasticity scores among those patients randomly assigned nabizimals, while those provided the placebo experienced a deterioration in their scores. The authors determined that nabizimals' treatment was, quote, well tolerated, end quote, and that no serious adverse events occurred over the trial period. The researchers concluded, quote, in this proof of concept trial, nabizimals had a positive effect on spasticity symptoms in patients with motor neuron diseases and had acceptable safety and tolerability profile. These findings should be investigated further in larger clinical trials, end quote. Nabizimals, also known under the brand name Sativex, is prescribed in numerous countries throughout the world in the treatment of multiple sclerosis. The study, Safety and Efficacy of Nabizimals on Spasticity Symptoms in Patients with Motor Neuron Disease, or CANALS, a multi-center, double-blind, randomized, placebo-controlled phase 2 trial, appears in this month's edition of Lancet Neurology. Our own Earl Blumenauer, United States Congressman from here in Portland, Oregon, has introduced the Regulate Marijuana Like Alcohol Act, also known as H.R. 420. He went out of his way to get that designation. And he seeks to designate and deschedule cannabis from the Controlled Substances Act, thus permitting state governments to regulate these activities as they see fit. We recommend that you contact your representative in the United States Congress and urge them to support this important legislation. U.S. Representative Lou Correa from California this week introduced H.R. 493, the Sensible Enforcement of Cannabis Act, which would codify the protections that were outlined in the now rescinded Cole Memo. Additionally, a bipartisan coalition of U.S. House lawmakers introduced the Medical Cannabis Research Act of 2019, also known as H.R. 601, to facilitate federally approved clinical trials involving cannabis. At a state level, patients in Ohio and Oklahoma now have access to medical cannabis over the counter, as sales began in both states this week. In New York, Governor Andrew Cuomo and Governor Gina Raimondo of Rhode Island both included plans for cannabis legalization as part of their budget proposals in their respective states. A medical cannabis access bill was signed into law in the U.S. Virgin Islands. Meanwhile, a decriminalization bill was defeated in the Virginia House this week. At a more local level, Winchester County, New York's district attorney will no longer prosecute low-level cannabis possession cases. Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin approved 2 different advisory questions to appear on the April ballot, and Oklahoma City Public Schools will now allow students to be administered medical cannabis by a caregiver while at school. That's the end of our hemp news segment for tonight, and John Cornett's standing by, ready to sing a song.
Sure, I am. Thank you for ending that on a positive note, Paul. Hey, you know, oh, there it is. I hear that effects back there. You know, we've been bringing songs to you and lots of good news for a long time. I just want to let you guys know that this venue where I'm sitting right here and playing is open to you. You can come out and play. Please come out and play. We need you. This is called So Good. We like train wrecks, oh, northern lights. We like Shrek too, sour diesel, oh yeah. Life is good, oh yeah. Life is good. Life is good for you and me. So good. So good, so good, so good. We like God, but purple haze. We like cheese too, Cinderella. Life is good. Life is good. Life is good for you and me. So good. So good. So good. So good. It don't matter which you like, don't matter when you do it. Just matters that you do it right. Let's get down to it. So good, so good, so good, so good.
Thank you, John.
Thank you, Paul.
Appreciate it.
Thank you guys for coming out.
John will be back at the end of the show to play a few moments of music as we go
great.
off there.
Yeah.
Well, Mary Lou,
Hi, Paul.
Burton,
Thank
you
you.
for coming on. You
Miranda
too, Miranda.
and
Is it
Ted?
Wigan? And
Weigler.
Ted Bernhardt.
Yeah.
Say that
Yes.
Weigler.
again?
Weigler.
Weigler.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll try to pronounce that right.
That's cool.
So you three are involved with the Cannabis Collaborative Conference, and this is it the 5th or 6th year of this conference?
5th year.
5th year.
Yeah.
I've gone the last couple of years, and I've been impressed at the quality of
Thank
the
you.
presentations and the speakers and
Thank you.
the professional nature of the conference. How did you start this?
I did, and it's kind of a funny story that I had a corporate meeting and event planning company that I had for 30 years and pulled together the hospitality industry so they'd work together. Hotels, caterers, and did a huge trade show at the convention center. And as that business was happening, I had a friend in Washington who opened a tier 3. She came from Microsoft, Fisher Scientific, very smart woman, was best friends with my college roommate. I watched for 6 months the hurdles that they had to go through. The
Constantly changing
constant every
regulatory environment.
everything, and it was like they were doing everything right, but they could not grow for what they were selling it for. So just the hurdles that she went through. I mean, at one point she had to deadbolt a safe in the back of her Volvo. I'm like, where do you put the kids? You know? So she jokingly one day said, you really need to take what you did with your other company and apply it to this industry. Well, that being said, I did not know a lot about this industry, and
Sure. Nobody does.
heard all the bad stuff. All the bad stuff. Grew up Catholic, and basically this is a terrible thing. Well, my mom passed away and I saw what opioids did to her. I have trouble sleeping, was hooked on Ambien, started using CBD, and I have the best sleep I've ever had in my life. So then I learned more about, watched Jack's special on hemp and was blown away that we have taken our most important world's resource and that it became illegal because of big business. And maybe I get a little too passionate, but then seeing the amazing people in this industry and the ones that have worked hard, that have gone to jail, that have done the right, have transferred over, and seeing them suffer right now, we pulled together the conference to bring together everybody as one voice because 2,500 people make a difference. We bring in OLCC, and then OLCC just invited Washington LCB, Rick Garza.
I know last year you had both the head of the OLCC and the Washington Liquor and Cannabis Board together with one other person. Congressman Blumenauer was there, Yeah,
and
he was
then,
the keynote or
yeah, and then I think Department of Revenue,
Yeah, maybe
because
that was
money
it.
runs everything. But the important thing is helping this industry to become successful and profitable. They've put everything into it. I mean, I have growers that are like, I need to sell my grow. I've put everything into it.
Yeah.
So
Well, the
we're-
recent reports are that there's 7 years worth of cannabis in inventory currently.
Yes,
So-
and we will talk about that, some of the exciting things that are planned this year. But our speakers are real people. They're people that have experienced it, lived it, and they have something really important to say. There's a lot of conferences where people pay for speaking positions, and that would, make a lot more money. But our goal is to cover our expenses. Ted from Cultiva Law is one of our largest sponsors. Literally said, I want to help this industry. Not spending his money in advertising, but literally helping. So he will do consults with some of my clients that are looking for investors and help them navigate through that. So there's a lot of things that have evolved from the conference, but it's January 23rd and 24th.
So that's next Tuesday and Wednesday? Is there Wednesday and Thursday?
Wednesday and Thursday.
Wednesday and Thursday.
With our investor forum being on Tuesday.
Okay.
And that's 2 tracks where we have people needing money, can be educated. Ted's going to be there talking about some of the horror stories.
So there's an investor conference on Tuesday. And then the general conference is Wednesday and Thursday.
Wednesday and Thursday.
Okay.
And I'll let Miranda take over because we have a pretty exciting element that we've got this year.
Miranda Weigler, how did you get involved in this?
So I've been involved in the cannabis industry professionally since 2016. I was doing a lot of business planning before that. I'm a native Oregonian, and I think that cannabis is the greatest economic opportunity the state has seen since timber, but it's a sustainable resource. It's something that we can do environmentally friendly, and it's something that's come out of the cottage industry in Oregon, small communities, small farmers, and it offers opportunities, especially to those more rural areas of the state, to continue that agricultural way of life, but have a crop that actually has a margin and can compete in that small craft. They can get paid for that value if we can get it out of the state.
Right, so we need to start being able to export cannabis. That would take care of the 7 years worth of inventory.
It really would. We have 1.4 million pounds in metric, mostly just stored in warehouses, which is degrading. And the real shame is that on the open global market, that could sell for $2,000 to $5,000 a pound, which would equate somewhere between close to $3 billion or $7 billion in a cash check to the state of Oregon, and about $1 billion if it was, 20% of that will be tax revenue.
Now, some of the things we're doing at the conference is those growers that have product, we have processors that'll be there that will actually buy their crop, or they can do toll processing where they give the crop and they get half the oil back to sell. So trying to solutions for these growers to be able to, what do I do with it? I've spent all this money and time, and we want, a good price.
Yeah.
So we'll have buyers at the show.
And you do have Congressman Blumenauer will be coming in to give a keynote via video, right? From
Video.
Washington.
You got it.
He couldn't get out of D.C. because of the
Ongoing shutdown.
Yeah, and the TSA people, and the airports are clogged, and all of that. It's crazy.
Yeah.
So Ted Bernhardt, you have a law firm. What is it, Cannativa Law?
Yeah, it's called Cultiva Law.
Cultiva Law.
Yeah, and actually, interesting to hear Miranda's story too. I also am a native Oregonian, and I also think that this is probably one of the biggest opportunities in the state since the timber industry. And I can say that with even a little more authority, because my first job straight out of law school was working for an investment fund called the Oregon Resource and Technology Development Fund, which was designed to take a portion of the state's lottery proceeds and invest it to help diversify the state of Oregon out of the timber industry and into high technology. And that's where, bringing it full circle, that's where they found me. I started off my career doing that, and then I was working in clean energy for a while, and then I hooked up with the founder of Cultiva Law, my partner Aaron Pelly, and he'd been doing criminal defense work up in Washington State for people who'd been involved with cannabis infractions. But when it was legalized in Washington and then down in Oregon, it became apparent to us that there was a huge need for people who are trying to do it legitimately and within the proper legal frameworks, and it made sense to sort of take my emerging industry experience and his criminal defense and particular cannabis experience and bring them together to focus a business-based law firm for people who are trying to get into this industry and build rapid growth businesses that can get financed and things like that. And so when we met Mary Lou and she started telling us about CCC, it became almost a perfectly natural fit for us, because as you can imagine, lawyers are kind of in the middle of all sides of these types of transactions. And on one hand, we have the entrepreneurs who are maybe have been involved with the cannabis industry for a long time, but may not have the financial background or the legal background to bring to the table immediately. And then you have a whole bunch of investors who are looking to get into the industry and explore the growth opportunities that are there. And so we found ourselves sort of in the middle of that, trying to explain the language of investors to entrepreneurs in the cannabis industry, and explain to investors that the cannabis industry is something legitimate that they can invest in, and it's a great economic development opportunity as well. And so working in the context of an environment like CCC, where we're actually trying to bring those people together, educate them, and produce, a broader success story for the state is something that we're very committed to, not only in Oregon, but in Washington too. So.
Tell me about the investor conference you'll be working with on Tuesday. So there's a track for people who want to invest and a different track for people who are looking for investors.
Yeah, exactly. So sort of along those two lines that I was just talking about. There's one for entrepreneurs and one for investors. And
so this is this coming Tuesday?
This coming Tuesday.
That's right here at the Oregon Convention Center.
Portland Expo.
Right.
At the Portland
Right
Expo
on
Center.
of Oregon and Washington.
Right.
Yeah, and we've got a whole range of speakers talking about the practicalities of pretty much the whole business life cycle: marketing, finance, investment, law, the technology. all that
Horror
sort of
stories.
Stuff. And one of the things I'm going to be talking about is I'm actually going to be talking to entrepreneurs on one side and then investors on the other side about some of the war stories and the horror stories. That
I've been the victim of a horror story, but we won't go into that right
Yeah,
now. That's why this
exactly.
banner behind us is turned around. An Israeli-Canadian oil company says they own the name of our Oregon nonprofit, the Hemp and Cannabis
Wow.
Foundation. And they
Wow. You need a
stolen my
lawyer.
company
Oh,
and taken my company public.
it's
And
funny
I'm
you
fighting them in court still. I'm supposed to go to trial here in a week. So
and
I've
I'm
got
not
quite a
going
horror
to touch
story.
the specifics of your case, but
Yeah, of
I
course
will
not.
tell you this, that the number one sort of horror story that I was going to talk about was Canadian public shell companies coming down to the United
They
States.
basically just lied, and they hired Markowitz Herbaugh, one of the most expensive law firms in the state. They spent $2 million.
Yep.
I spent $170,000.
Wow.
And
It's
I've
just-
been robbed. They
discouraging.
fired my wife. They fired my two children. They've taken my company into the ground.
The difficulty of a Wild West industry is that there's massive opportunity, but it also leaves
Beware.
open a lot of people to be
These guys are able to just
harmed.
lie because their lawyers can
Yeah.
pay for it. They
Right.
say they paid me something. If you call them, they will tell you I sold my company, but I was never paid a penny.
And
That's
this is why it's
ridiculous.
important to come together as a community and to provide social proof and
Yeah.
to say these are people who do business with integrity and these are people who are all committed to trying to do this the right way so that we can figure out what the
trusted.
rules are. We can actually do trusted business transactions and those of us who all want to build something can do it together.
I had a company, a financing company, approach and wanted a booth at the show. And of course, that's what it takes. They're sponsors and exhibitors. Well, they're like, oh, we're going to do private funding for the industry. And I took the time to read through the contract. Ted taught me that. And in fine print, it was, you have to pay the origination fee up front. So if somebody wanted $200,000 loan, and people are desperate, right? And this industry, they are caring. They're not, it's amazing how this industry gives back. I am blown
And
away.
it's
This is
mostly
how
personal wealth.
But
It's
they-
family money.
Yeah.
It's people's savings.
Yeah.
It's
They've
people's
destroyed my
grandparents'
family.
life savings.
Yeah,
Well, I
and
mean,
that
we're
that has
deeply,
to.
deeply in
I mean,
debt.
we're doing what we can. We can't help
Yeah, of
everybody,
course not, of course
but
not.
like we're going to have a company there that will do background checks for $30.
Mm-hmm,
Take the time to check out who you're talking to.
Yeah.
So
And two of the aspects of my presentation will be, one is sort of red flags ahead of time so that you can avoid getting caught in those things. But two, and this I'm finding in my own practice is very important. What do you do after you realize you've been scammed? Who do you go to report them to? How do you maximize your recovery? How do you protect yourself from the various shady mechanisms that these people are doing? So,
and the broker situation. I mean, we
And-
were talking about
yeah.
that earlier. That
Particularly in hemp.
somebody will show a proof of funds that's not their proof of funds,
Mm.
and it's sad. And we just have to protect. We have to protect each other and create a trusted network. So on that note, for funding. We worked with Willamette Week on a pitch competition. So we have 39 businesses doing a short pitch competition, which we'd
right.
love to have you participate.
All right. We'd be happy to talk about
And then there'll be,
Yeah, we have 15 semifinalists. So alongside the two education tracks that we were talking about before, will be the semifinals of the pitch competition, kind of highlighting some of the best cannabis businesses from hemp polymers to particular CBD brands, particular brands based in families or based in life experiences who have different kinds of products that consumers can purchase, but they each have a little bit of a different value proposition. So we have a group of judges from our conference and from the industry who come from different kinds of business backgrounds to start some of those questions and say, are you prepared? What are your answers when an investor wants to know, what is your growth strategy? How do you acquire customers? What is your, capital, safety nets, whatever those things are, to ask those questions of those and to showcase all the kinds of different things that people are doing. Most people think about a legal cannabis industry, they think about growing and they think about selling, but they don't understand the complexity of the industries that's being built around that with B2B media networks and, particular kinds of cultivation equipment or soil testing for particular contaminants. Those are all different kinds of businesses.
Sure.
So we're excited to highlight a lot of those. And the 5 finalists will be on the main stage at the end of the conference.
Right.
And
be able to get in front of investors. When I heard the concerns and, he just needs $100,000 just, but $100,000 and he could expand the brand, and so I've had private investors come to me saying, I want to get into the industry, I want to start a grow. And I'm like, well, you might as well throw your money away because this is not growing a tomato plant. Yeah. I am blown away, and anybody that I think calls themselves a master grower, that's your first trigger that they're not. The real growers do not say that. Yeah. And I learned that when we did the Oregon plant competition down in Salem at the State Fair. We had 12 plants on display at the State Fair. Was so proud. These growers that got the award got up and they were like, I would have been pulled over and had 5 felonies 3 years ago, and now I'm getting an award. I mean, they were crying. And then the plants were on display for 12 days for 250,000 people. And somebody ran the story 4-H Cannabis, and it went viral. And we then had the Associated Press and the BBC, and they took a picture of the State Fair kiosk and said, if a state fair can recognize this as agriculture, why can't the DEA or feds? And what that did was put us on the map. Oregon we are craft. We are like our beer and wine. And what I believe is these struggling people in the industry that have stayed true to it, the connecting at the conference, the investment. So a friend of mine said, I have 300,000. And I said, you know what, you can throw it away, but I have a grower that I can connect you with, and then you can sit back and watch your money grow. So it kind of started simply, Nectar, I'm helping to find retail stores. So I shot out an email to 300 retail stores and wasn't sure what the response would be, but I'm like, are you interested in talking to a buyer? And I had 24 call me back that said, we love what we're doing, but we have struggled and, we are ready to talk to a real investor. Not somebody that wants to come in and offer them stock for their business to then put it in a portfolio and raise more money.
Right.
If I hear on CNN one more time that millionaires are being born every day, that is a lie. Yeah. It is a lie. Yeah. And I just want businesses to be strong before the big business comes on board. I want them to be strong enough that they come in and buy them out and that they can retire and not be run over. And it's but it's the power of the conference, and Miranda can detail. We've got 30 sessions.
You know what? We do take viewer phone calls, and I was told about 10 minutes ago that a caller has been standing by. So if you have a question for our panel here about marijuana or industrial hemp, then give us a call at that number there on your screen. It's 503-288-4442. That's 503-288-4442. I'm told that call is gone now, but we do have a studio audience, and I see that John Cornett is at the microphone and has a question. So go right ahead, John.
Thank you, Paul. I wish you wouldn't tell them who it is, but that's okay.
Oh, that's all right.
I just need to stand up here in defense of the OMMP people. I feel like the medical cannabis community has been thrown under the bus. Particularly where it involves growers and patients who want to be their own grower and that kind of thing. I worry about them becoming victim, as well as me becoming victim of the pressure to shut down the home grows so the local business can capitalize on that big, the medical community uses a lot of cannabis. I use a lot to keep me from seizing. I use a lot for extreme debilitating pain in my lower back. I have a failed fusion L4, L5S1. The oil helps me to keep going. Amazing. Thank you, God, and the oil. Thank you, nothing to OLCC and even the other commission, because they've thrown us under the bus. We're being thrown. I want to know from you guys: do you have any intention or any desire? Is it even on your radar to do something to put aside or make sure that there's a put aside for people who are suffering and who have no means of going and buying whatever from the store, and the only way that they have of defending themselves, such as even Paul was trying to start some clinics. He got hijacked. And everybody's saying to us, oh, we take care of each other. Excuse me, it's Bravo Sierra. No, we don't. No, we don't. Because nobody's taking care of this. Nobody's helping this guy. We need legal help. We're not getting it. We can't get it. Nobody's got the money. But talk about the business side, yeah. Oh, here's my money. We need money for legal defense for somebody who's trying to help out people. That's why we have a retail program. Because the people like me, who did well with our intentions, being good patients, and now we've been thrown under the bus.
Let's give them a chance to reply.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the biggest shame in all of what's happening in the market contraction right now is what's happening to the Oregon medical community, who are the community who has driven this change for decades and who has provided the roots of what we all are benefiting from here. And the difficulty with the market contraction is there are very few players who have a whole lot of money and a lot of farmers who are struggling, because when the state told them to go legal, they did.
They suffered.
But the difficulty is, it turns out a lot of our legal, what was our market was an export market, because Oregon has the highest quality product in the world. And we have the most strains, we have the most understanding about what different kinds of ailments can be treated as a result because of the strength of that medical community, and they are the ones who are the most at risk. So this is where we think that export is the only silver bullet which can help incentivize more people to come in, help us identify who are the criminal bad actors, and provide enough revenue to stabilize the market to be able to provide the protections for the medical community who helped get us where we are today and to which we all owe a great debt, and who can help us continue to understand what the medical applications will be. Because as you said in your rundown, there are significant numbers of different kinds of ailments that people are struggling with.
Yeah, it's amazing the wide variety of ailments that medical cannabis helps. Everything from neurodegenerative diseases and gastrointestinal ailments to cancer and psychiatric conditions, and even osteoporosis. Who would have thought that would be?
And one of the benefits also of Oregon is that we also have forward-thinking modalities around wellness. So not only are we home to OHSU, the Oregon Health Sciences University, we're also home to the College of Naturopathic Medicine, and we have higher concentrations of alternative practitioners. So we can really start to understand and explore from all of those applications how we can truly help create wellness and help people who are in pain or who suffer from various kinds of degenerative illnesses from a plant that grows in the ground. And we can help understand what are better ways to cultivate that, because people should have the opportunity to cultivate it at home to be able to treat their own illnesses from their own intrinsic care purposes, as well as have the convenience of buying it at a store. It doesn't have to be either or, and hopefully if we can help the industry to grow and to profit, we can give back to that medical community who started it all and to whom we all owe a very great debt.
And Miranda, OLCC next door is having an OMMP inviting in and talking to them. So I feel they are reaching out. It'll never be, it's not fair. I'll tell you, it's not fair, but I think we're trying everybody to incorporate. I deal with a lot of, the growers that were OMMP, and trying to work together. If we can help them to be part of the whole community and continue the program. I mean, we have to do what's important. My son a year ago was walking home from work and got hit by a car, and broken bones, shattered pelvis, everything. And I asked the doctors, what are you going to do for his brain? Because he's going to become an opioid, addicted to opiates, right?
Yeah, the doctors will.
No, they
they
said that's
get
not
you
our
addicted to
arena.
it very
That's
quickly.
not our arena. And I talked to the psychiatrist, and he's like, we're the only doctors that can't study the organ we're treating. They were throwing literally just like candy. And
Yeah, the doctors get patients addicted to these opioid pain
Yeah.
relievers, and you're addicted in 3 or 4 days.
yeah,
And then they label them as drug seekers and say they're the problem.
Mm-hmm.
But it's really the mistake in the doctor's original prescription of those things. They shouldn't prescribe them for more than
and
4 or
he's
5
now
days.
using transdermal patches for the pain and
So those are
tinctures.
cannabis-based
CBD.
patches. Oh, okay.
CBD and what it does for the swelling and all of that. It's just it's amazing. It's
We also have a medical science track, one of our education tracks at the main conference. And one of the exciting things is we have some local doctors who are endocannabinists. They study
I know the Knoxes.
You know the
they're,
Knox doctors. They
I
study the
work with them.
endocannabinoid system.
They started actually in my clinics.
They're-
They quit when the corporate takeover happened.
They are extraordinary individuals who are doing very important work to be able to bring together the medical community and those people in the industry who are trying to evolve what this looks like. And they study the endocannabinoid system. Everyone has one, and it's what regulates homeostasis. It's what brings us back to balance. And so this is also where some of the difficulties with the medical program are the ways in which cannabis medicine is disruptive to the traditional academy, and the academy doesn't quite know how to deal with it. That's why they're so valuable to be able to mediate between those, and that's why we hope to provide a platform for those kinds of conversations so that we can figure out what this new paradigm looks like.
So we have a few film clips. We have one 40-second clip from last year's event.
I think it was last year's,
Yeah,
yes.
and so is that video ready to roll? Okay, let's go ahead and run that video, and we'll be right back.
So the nature of doing a conference like this, the Cannabis Collaborative Conference, we're talking to everyone across the industry, from the growers and the extractors to the ancillary companies, packaging. We are constantly asked, hey, I'm looking to sell this product, or I'm in need of this. So Cannabis Connects helps bring that all together. If you're looking to buy something, you're looking to sell something, come here, tell us the basics of what you're looking for, and we'll connect you and help you find it.
So your website is ccc-con.com.
Yes.
That's catchy. And you have offered a discount to
Yes.
viewers, and that is, we've got it there on the screen. It's your website. That's where they can buy
Yes.
it, and they've got to buy it in advance to get the.
Yes.
What is that discount? It's CCC50
well,
is the code.
That's the promo code, and there's tickets to the investor forum. That is $99. We don't charge like the Vegas show. Our one day is $149, and so with $50 off, they can be there for $99. Oh no, one day is $149. So, and then the 2 day is $249. So the $50 helps them so they can attend the show floor, the over 30 sessions. I advise everybody to go online
There
and
are
take
some
a look.
concurrent ones, so you can't go to all 30
Exactly.
by yourself.
But
You can go maybe.
the good part is
I wish.
it was an extra expense, but we're videotaping everything. So
All right.
anybody that comes to the conference will get the videos following the conference.
I remember that, and I
Yep.
did check in on some of those in the last couple of years as I went to that conference. So
It's
that's-
exciting.
We
Yeah.
also have an app so that conference attendees can figure out which sessions they want to go to, take notes directly in it, and then connect directly with the speakers through a bunch of different social platforms.
How do people get that app? Go
You can go to the
Google
App
Store or
Store, or if you go to
Or
the
on our
website.
website, there's a download for it.
something? Okay.
So we're trying to be modern, but
doing a
everybody,
good job of it.
everybody's on social media. But you know what my social media is? Hi, Paul.
That's the old fashioned.
She's very social.
That's good. That's good. We have another video here of Congressman Earl Blumenauer at last year's Cannabis Collaborative Conference, and we'll play a little excerpt from that. We'll be back just after that.
The federal government to respect the will of millions of voters from Maine to California. You want the insane prohibitions against clinical research on cannabis to be done away with. That restricts the opportunities we've got to mature the industry, to be able to develop important, effective tests for impairment. This is a critical issue. As you know, there are 20 million people a month who use cannabis. And many people, I've lost track of the number of people who've told me that medical marijuana has changed their lives. And it is totally mainstream. You want to make sure that the Veterans Administration, doctors, can talk to America's veterans in states where it is legal. But it's not just for our veterans who die too frequently from overdose, who have been given opioids at a frequency far, far in excess of the general population, and are denied a medication that can be transformative. It shouldn't be that hard. Well, we're coming into what I think now is the home stretch. I was appalled at what Jeff Sessions did, but the more I reflected on it, it made me a favor. As I've been campaigning around the country, I have made the prediction and a number of bets that this crusade is over in 5 years. Well, that was last year, so I've only got 4 years left. But I think if we all do our job, thanks to Jeff Sessions, we can cut that time in half. We've got people who are involved that have not been involved before. We have more media attention, and we are getting more people in Congress. You know, I've mentioned the Rohrabacher-Blumenauer amendment was easier to get into the continuing resolution than any other time that we've dealt with it. Congress is pretty much aligned. It's the best Congress we've ever had. Virtually every one of my Democratic colleagues, and now dozens of Republicans, are on board. But let's just lay it out. The Republican leadership would not even allow us a vote this last year on continuing it. Now, we're in reasonably good shape.
Well, the Republican leadership in the House is gone now, and we've got a very exciting new group of younger, more progressive people in the United States Congress. I think we can see Blumenauer's the head now of the Cannabis Caucus in Congress. I think we can see some changes by the end of this year. I think that's
exciting.
Very likely, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. But it also means we've got to get strong before that happens.
And work together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
One of the areas that I think would be great, going back to the question about medical, is if at the federal level we can start gathering more data to prove the validity and the efficacy of cannabis-related products here, and maybe even starting with the hemp and the CBD as a starting point. So I think that's some low-hanging fruit that now that the administration's changed there, that we might be able to.
I think we can win in the House, but will they get it through the Republican-controlled Senate? That's
the
question.
question.
Yeah. Although there's 70% of the population that supports this, and so voting against it, I think, but you know, politics surprises me every day. So.
Indeed. Money talks often, is that.
But we also have spiraling healthcare costs, so this can actually offset some of those things with plants that people can grow in their own backyard. So
you have some events at the conference coming up. Again, now You've got the Cannabis Collaborative Conference. It's going to be an investor track on Tuesday, and then on Wednesday and Thursday, a general conference with sessions and exhibitors. Tell me about some of the things that are going to, that the people who come will be able to see.
Well, we have a bunch of education tracks. You can go on our website, look at the agenda, and they're color coded for different kinds of education. I mentioned medical science. We have one on social justice, branding, best business practices, a variety of those things. And then we also have some additional activities and events that are happening. So we have a Leaf Ladies networking brunch on Thursday morning.
I'm going.
He is going. I've been we are, everyone is welcome. The advice is just to remember that this is for women to network specifically.
So you're not going to dominate it, right?
He's a guest, and we ask him to remember that. But in 2016, 35% of the industry was led by women, and that number has been decreasing. So we want to try and make sure that we, fix that balance if we can, go back to kind of closer to numbers. For me, that was actually why I quit corporate life, to be able to come and do this. And the first place I ever met Mary Lou was at a women's networking event. So we can see that it has genuine results in the industry. And so we're having that on Thursday morning. We're going to have a guest of honor from City Commissioner Chloe Daly is going to come, which we're really grateful, because her office has actually been leading a lot of progressive measures in Portland. And one of them is that city tax revenue has been given to the Metropolitan Public Defenders to help people who have cannabis violations expunge their records, to be able to give them access to the industry, and hopefully, some of the bounty that will come as a result.
And that's all free.
So we have a booth at the conference. People can email cannabiscleared@mpdlaw.com ahead of time, send in the information, and they can do an analysis.
Say that again.
Cannabiscleared@mpdlaw.com. They can start to do the analysis, do the paperwork at the conference. They'll have a notary, and they'll be able to take fingerprints and actually file the paperwork from the conference. And if people don't have an opportunity to email, they can stop by the Metropolitan Public Defender's booth and start their analysis and paperwork to start to get their records expunged. It's one of the things that the city is doing to try and make sure that there is restorative justice as we work forward in this industry, so that we're balancing the interests of all people.
No, that's
And
wonderful.
then Rob Bovet said, "Can I?"
I debated him because I was the spokesperson for Measure 80, and he was
He asked if he could invite all county commissioners to come to the conference. We're having a panel on the future of enforcement, which I think is going to be kind of interesting. What does it look like in a post-prohibition, post-normalized world? What does enforcement look like? What does good look like when social consumption happens and it's a more common medical treatment and this is business like any other? What does enforcement look like in that paradigm? So he's actually moderating a conversation between Lee Berger and Rich Evans, who will be talking about what the OLCC's position will be.
He debated against me on ballot measure 80 when he was a district attorney there on the coast. He came in at the Eugene City Club and argued against legalization. And of course, I was a spokesperson in favor of measure 80.
Well, a number of the counties in Southern Oregon are really excited about the possibility of export, though, and he's been helping with that.
I think I cleaned up the debate, though. He didn't do very well.
Well, it didn't.
I mean, I don't want to seem egotistical. The facts were on my side.
I try not to judge a debate that I haven't actually watched, so I'll have to.
I know some of the
we've got it on our.
Some of the sessions should be really heated. I'm looking
some
forward
of them are
to
going to be, very interesting, and that's the point, to have these conversations and to say this is actually really good for Jackson and Josephine County if the taxes are applied based on where the product is produced as opposed to where it is sold. It actually stands to give those counties a lot of revenue that can help them with their enforcement process and potentially invest in infrastructure.
We're down to just 2.5 minutes left to go here. So the website for the Cannabis Collaborative Conference is ccc-con, con.com, C-O-M.
And call it the Triple C.
There's the CCC50. That's a discount code for people who want to go online and buy the tickets in advance.
Yes, we would love to have everybody come and show their support of working together and just seeing what we can do and how we can move forward and making Oregon the model state. Cannabis
is the fastest growing industry industry in North America and looks to provide job opportunities for people in all kinds of sectors.
Oh, we're having the job fair too.
We have a
Forgot about
job
the job fair.
This is the center
Too
of it
many
all.
things
This is
going
where
on.
we've been doing it, and this is where the center of global trade we expect to be in the Pacific Northwest. So
I've been saying for a long time that Oregon will be the way North Carolina is to the tobacco industry.
Absolutely.
If the Californians don't steal it away.
well,
No,
we,
they won't. We won't let it.
we are the Green Valley, so
Yeah.
you know, Silicon
But that
Valley.
is why I just have to make one more plug
Yeah.
for the export that Miranda was talking about. That's why it's so important. Coming from the tech industry in the 90s, Oregon was trying to grow all of these tech companies. They reached a certain level and then got bought out by the big corporations in California or elsewhere, and we lost all of that expertise. And I'm afraid that we need to be very vigilant to prevent that from happening in this industry, because we are a leader right now. We have the expertise and the resources to do it, and I hope
Well,
we can.
thank you for coming on, Ted
Thank
Bernhardt.
you. Yep.
You're with
Cultiva Law.
Cultiva Law.
And he will be in the Cultiva Investor Connects Lounge.
Okay.
So if people need help with business valuations, how to prepare for an investor, he'll
Okay.
be there to meet with people.
and Miranda Wiegler and
Mary
Mary
Lou.
Lou Burton. I really appreciate you guys coming on
Thank you.
again,
Thank you for
and
having us.
good luck for a
you.
good conference. I look forward to being there.
We'll see you
and,
on a panel.
Yeah,
I'm excited
we're
about that.
excited
Thank
about
you.
that.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Me too. So see you at the conference next week. Here's Mr. John Cornett. Thank you guys for watching. Tune in next week and we'll restore hemp.
Yes.
Investigate, investigate. Whoa, whoa. Now's the time.
Free by the crop.
The truth.